Okay, to make this cute little cozy container idea, again, which also has a removable one because we got the lid underneath, I'm going to show you what you need first, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. One, just some worsted weight yarn. This isn't even like a full skein. You're definitely, depending on the size of container you choose to do this with, you're definitely not going to do that much. One skein will make probably 2 or 3 of these. But what you're going to want, which is under this one, is actually it's an old ice cream container. I don't know if anyone's ever tried this brand. Over the summer, they're plastic containers, they have a screw-on lid, they're really durable, so I kept them after I bought a bunch of them over the summer. I had coupons, wouldn't buy this without coupons. But anyhow, so like I had a bunch of these containers left over, I rinsed them out, and I like that they're a good sturdy plastic. If you don't have any leftover like plastic ice cream containers, you can most likely find something maybe at the Dollar Tree or something in similar measurements. So I will share the measurements so that you can try to modify this pattern for whatever container you have. So what I like about this container, and the other thing you're going to need, is you'll need the tape measure. This is so to give you guys an idea of how big around and how high this, or excuse me, how tall this is that I covered. So just to give you an idea, you're going to want a container when you measure it around, okay, going around the base. It is about, get over there, let's see, we've got it just a hair over 10.5 inches. So that's how big around it is. And then I believe the height was 4 inches from top to bottom. So let's go ahead and remeasure that. From the top of the lid to its base is 4 inches. Now the first part we're going to do is only going to go up to this part right here. So it won't be counting the lid. The lid, excuse me, we're only going to do up to that ridge where the lid would go for the first part. And then of course we're going to make a cover for the lid. So when you find a container, keep that in mind, that you are going to go up until you hit whatever lid you have, and then you're going to make a cover. And again, you're just going to modify it to the best of your ability. This was 4 inches high, and it was about 10.5 inches around. You want a row counter. Again, this one I got on Amazon. I get questions about this one sometimes. It's like a sports tally one instead of an actual, like, in the craft section. It was actually in the sports section. So, and of course your looming tool. Again, I did a review on this one. This actually was considered in the hardware department, so I do have a review on this, and if I think of it, I will put the link down to my review below. Also, of course, as always, scissors and a crochet hook is always good to have on hand. And the loom we're going to be using today, excuse me, is the Sock Loom 2 from knittingboard.com. The first part of this is with the Sock Loom 2 from Knitting Board, you want to set it for 36 pegs in the round. Again, if you don't have one of these looms, you're just going to loosen this over here and slide this to where you need it. And I'm going to be working in the round on this side. Then you're going to take your create your slip knot. If you don't know how to do one, you're just going to create your slip knot. And then you're going to place it on your first peg. And we're going to do the Purl Cast On. So let me get this ready. With the Purl Cast On, we're going to bring the working yarn in front of our peg, reach through our loop, grab the working yarn, and we're going to do like a normal purl. When we get that new loop, we're going to go ahead, move our working yarn to the back of the peg, and place that new loop on the next peg. You do the same thing. You bring your working yarn in front, go down through, oops, excuse me, try that again. Sorry about that. Bring your, then you're going to go ahead and you'll do the same thing. You're going to bring your working yarn through the loop, just as if you were doing a normal purl. Put that new loop back on, but again, move your working yarn to the back of the peg and put the new loop on. Grab your working yarn again, give it a little tug to tighten it on there. Again, bring your working yarn to the front, go through, grab the working yarn to make a loop, and again, take this to the back of the peg and place it on the loop you created on the next peg. Go ahead and continue this around till you get back to your starting point. Even make sure you also join your last peg and your first peg together doing that same cast on. I wanted to mention that, so make sure your working yarn is behind, and then take that last loop and put it on the first peg again, and then just go ahead and knit that over. because there's going to be 2 loops on this peg. And that gets our cast on complete. And your working tail is still back here on the last peg, so we're still going to go right into what we need to do for the first row. Now this is the bottom. I didn't explain that we're working on this part down here. Excuse me. We're working on the part down here. And it's just a combination of knit rows and U-knit rows for the bottom. It's very simple, but I like to show the process. I'm learning to do more videos that show the process, even on very simple projects, just for those that are more of a visual learner and want to see. So when you're going to go to the next thing you're going to do, we're going to do a U-knit row. Now if you remember, if you haven't already ever done a U-knit, you're just going to take your working yarn and wrap it kind of in a U, excuse me, on the peg, and knit over. You're not going to do a full E-wrap. You're not going to do a laying in front. A flat knit would be laying it in front. A U-knit, you're just taking your yarn and you're just kind of U-ing it around, excuse me, around the pegs. Let me come in here a little bit so you can see. So I'm just taking my yarn and I'm just kind of doing it almost like a U around the peg, hence the name U-knit. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that all the way around the row. Now remember, a U-knit creates a tighter, excuse me, I didn't realize I was on the screen. A U-knit creates a tighter knit than doing an E-wrap knit. And as you practice it, it's obviously just like E-wrap, it ends up working out pretty fast, going through the rows, but it does take, I almost notice it takes more rows than it would be if I E-wrapped. So keep that in mind when you adjust this pattern, is that you may need to add or decrease the amount of rows depending on the container you're actually doing. So I'm going to continue this all the way back to my starting point, and then we'll move on to the next. Okay, the next row we're going to do is a simple purl row. Again, it's similar to how we did our cast on, but for those that are unfamiliar, you're going to bring your working yarn in front, underneath a loop you have on there, go through the loop, take your working yarn and turn it so you create a new loop, and that new loop is what you put back on that same peg. And that's all you're going to do for this row, is you're going to go around and you're going to do a purl row. What we're kind of creating is like a garter stitch with these 2 stitches just to kind of help with curling. So what I want you to do is finish off this row of purl. Let me back up here. Go ahead and finish your row of purl. Then I want you to go and do 1 row of E-wrap, excuse me, of U-knit, sorry. I want you to do another row of purl. So again, finish your purl row, then do 1 row of U-knit and 1 row of purl, and then come back. Once you complete that row of purl, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the directions on the next few screens for you to follow, and I'll come back when it's time to cast it off. You're only going to be doing either a U-knit or a purl for the rows, and again I will have the instructions on the next couple screens. Just go ahead and pause each screen, complete that section, and then go to the next screen. You already know how to do purl, you already know how to do U-knit because I showed you in the beginning. I will come back when it's time to do the actual casting off of this project, and then we'll move on to making the top part of it, which again is another few very simple steps. So okay, go ahead and continue on, pausing where you need to, complete each section, and I will meet you back here for the casting off of the bottom part. Okay guys, it's time to take the bottom part off the loom. So we're going to do the crochet cast off, and we're going to do 2 chains in between. I've done this kind of cast off before, but for those that are new to it, it means that you're going to wrap a peg, excuse me, just going to get the right angle here, knit over, wrap that same peg twice, or one more time here, knit over. Now move it over. Then do that process. You're going to knit that over, wrap the peg once, knit over, wrap the peg again, knit over, move it over. Knit that one over, wrap it again, knit it over, wrap it again, knit over, move it over. One more time. Once you move it over, you're going to knit it over, rewrap the peg once, rewrap the peg twice, and move it over. Continue this until you get back to the starting point, and then I'll finish it off. Well, on the inside here, doing the same thing we need to do. I've already done my 2 wraps, and I'm getting ready to move this over to the second to last peg that I have to do. I apologize that I can't get the angle totally right because this part wants to hit my camera, but you're going to want to, as you get to the last, you're still doing the same thing. You're knitting over, you're rewrapping it once, rewrapping it twice, and now we're on to moving it to the last peg. So we're going to move it over here onto the last peg, and we're going to knit it over. Now from here we want to cut our working yarn. So give yourself a pretty big tail, anywhere from 10 inches to 12 inches. You won't need that much, but it's always better to have too much. So I got my long tail, and now I need my crochet hook. I want to take this loop off of this peg and put it on my crochet hook. So I'm going to gently take it off, try not to lose my loop. Go ahead and put it on the crochet hook. Hang on one second, I got my camera thing in the way here. Alright, so now what you want to do is you want to join your last stitch that you did with kind of like your first stitch. But we still need to do those 2 chains in between. So we're going to do our 1 chain, our 2 chain, going into the loop. And now we're going to take this and we're going to go over to where we kind of see how it separates a little bit. You can kind of tell that little gap. This is where we want to work the yarn into. So you work it like that, you got your 2, and then take your back loop over the front loop, give a little tug, and that will help join the beginning and end of your project together. Now what I usually do is I take the yarn and I work it all the way through. Okay, that was what's happened. Just straight on me. Alright, let's get it back to the original loop here. Okay, sometimes you just kind of find your original loop when stuff comes off. Hang on one second. Okay. Alright, we got it back. I don't even know why my yarn never frays like that on me. Must have just got it caught. Okay, so as I was saying, you're going to go ahead and you're going to bring this all the way through your loop. Okay, give it a little tug, and then go ahead, and I usually like to tie it into a knot. Close to this as you can. And the also good thing is you might want to, on the inside, since this is the inside of the cozy, go ahead and weave some of the ends in for you. Oops. The yarn being frayed, it's kind of messing with my, there we go. You can kind of hide it in the project a little bit, and if you're a little worried that it isn't tied enough, you can go ahead, go in a loop, pull it through a little ways. And then you can kind of tie it as well on the inside of the project. And then you can trim it. from all the excess you don't need. Tuck it on the inside. Give it a little stretch to kind of help. Okay. And then again with your working tail, go ahead and hide that. Doing the same method you kind of did, bring it to the inside and hide it in one of the inside loops. Nope. And I'm going to go through another one. And if you want, you can choose to tie it as well. And give it a little trim. And that will hide on the inside of your project. So now this means we've done the bottom. I'm going to take this old one off, show you the new one on. Okay, so now this just slips right on to the part of the project that I want to cover, which is the bottom part. Now sometimes when you change rows you can kind of see a little bit of a wiggle there, but this is how it's going to look for the first part. So you kind of give it a little stretch out, and now we're going to work on making this simple, very simple little hat for the top of our cozy. So let's move on to that step next. Now to do the actual top part, this little hat, whatever you want to say, to cover the top of the canister, you're still going to cast on the same amount of stitches, and we're going to do the same exact cast on we did before, which is the Purl Cast On. So again, just a reminder so you don't have to go back and rewind this video, we're just going to simply place it on our starting peg, and then we bring our working yarn and give it a little, tighten it up there a little bit, if it will cooperate today. Okay, and then we bring the yarn in front, and we do it just like we're going to purl a stitch. If you remember from the beginning of the video, we make our new loop, and then we place this between the two pegs and move our new loop onto the next peg. Keeping the working tail out of our way here. So you do the same thing. You take your working yarn, place it under the loop on the peg you want to do, purl it, and then take this new loop and move your working yarn to the back and then place it on the next peg. And that's all you're going to do going around, just like we did before. Just back up here a little bit. So we're just going to go through, and again we're just purling and we're moving our working yarn to the back before we place the next and onto the next peg. So go ahead and do this all the way around the loom like we just did in the beginning for the bottom part. So again, work your way all the way around and making sure you connect the last peg to the first peg with the same, Purl Cast On, and then we move on to the next part. Okay, so like I joined the last peg to the first peg, and remember, you just go ahead and you're just going to knit that over. Okay, and that makes your working yarn still off the last peg. Now the rest of this is actually really simple. Instead of using the U-knit stitch, we're actually going to go back to the very basic stitch everyone uses usually, and that's just the E-wrap stitch. A lot of this is just going to be using the purl stitch and the E-wrap stitch this time, and not the actual U-knit, just to give it a little different look. If you look at this, this is the U-knit, and here, how tight it is, and then up here is the E-wrap. So I wanted to create a little different texture. And what we're going to do is we're going to work like in sets. So the E-wrap stitch, which I'm sure you are familiar with, is just where you go ahead and you wrap the peg around normally and you knit it over. So you're E-wrapping it around and you're knitting it over. You wrap it around and knit it over. And that's all you're going to do versus doing the U-knit. Because remember, the U-knit, we were coming in front and we were creating a U. This time we're just wrapping it, and that's what the E-wrap knit is. So I'm going to write the instructions because it's really pretty simple, and I just feel that it doesn't need much explanation, but I want to make sure I showed again how to do the Purl Cast On because it's really important. So what you're going to do is you're going to work in sets, which means we're going to do a row of E-wrap, and then we're going to do a row of purl. And we're going to repeat those 2 stitches a certain amount of times. And I'm going to have those instructions right after this little clip. So after completing the 4 sets of the E-wrap and purl combo and doing the 12 rows of E-wrap knit, we're ready to actually take this off the loom. We're going to do the gathered bind off. So you're going to need a pair of scissors, maybe your crochet hook depending, and of course what you're going to do is you're going to cut the tail already on the working tail is already on there, leaving yourself plenty of room, and then you're also going to do another piece of yarn. So sometimes what I do is I wrap it around the loom a couple times, and this will make sure that I have enough as I'm taking it off. So I'm just wrapping it around, and then I'm going to cut it, and that way we'll have enough as we work our way around. Now all you're going to do is kind of hold these 2 together, take your looming tool, and work this new string through all the loops, pulling it all the way through, and doing that across the pegs all the way through. Now what you want to be careful of is, because I'm used to doing this, you also want to be careful that you don't accidentally pull it through too much where you lose your tail over here. So keep an eye on that you're not pulling this yarn so much that you lose your starting ones that you need for at the end. And what you're going to do, pretty much what I do is I kind of work one side at a time. So once I get to the end of this row, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the loops off the pegs. And we're going to, before we work around, so I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to take the loops off the pegs. Now again, once you do this, again, keep an eye on these strands. You don't want to lose both of them through, so be kind of careful as you work the loops through. So again, do the same thing on this side. And then turn it, and we're working this side now. Now on the last side. Okay. Last one on this side. Okay. Come here. Alright, so this brings you back to your tails there. Now go ahead and take it off the loom completely. Okay. Now this is the outside. So what I want you to do is go ahead and turn it inside out before we close it off. So what you're going to do is when you're ready to close off, you're going to take your strands here and you're just going to pull them until it closes off the project. And it should close up pretty easily. You can kind of keep watching it to see whether you need to close it off more. And once you get it closed off as tight as you want, just go a little further. Okay, you just want that closed off as much as you can. Go ahead and tie it closed. I'm using 2 strands one way, 1 strand the other. And go ahead and tie it off. Again, I got still a little gap, but that's going to be okay. I can hide that in a minute. Now go ahead with your crochet hook. If you've got a little gap in there, you can easily take your crochet hook, go in a stitch beside it, grab a strand, and then kind of use that to help you get it tied off tighter. So we're going to simply retie it until it's stuck. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's just as long as you get it closed off as much as you want. And if you want, for good measure, you can do one more tie. And then go ahead and trim it. Remember, it's just going to be on the underside, so you don't have to trim it that much. Turn it right side in. Go ahead and as we did before, just go ahead and like hide your, your starting loop here inside the project if you need to, like we did on the top one. So you would go ahead and you would hide that, continue it, and then you got your little hat to go on top of your container. Oops, like that. Which you saw in the background that I just moved, is for another video. But there you go. You have your nice covered little container. And again, like I said in the beginning of the video, you could add a button here if you want to make it a little cuter, or even do something cuter along the sides. And again, you can still twist off, oops, this one doesn't want to twist off, but you can twist off the top while the hat's on. If you had a little glue, you could kind of maybe glue this onto this if you wanted to keep it from sliding. I just like the fact that it's loose in case I wanted to change out the cover for it, and then you can just slide it right back on. If the cap doesn't, put this on. Again, if you chose you didn't want to have the cap on and you just wanted to cover it with the hat, you could do that as well. I just like having the cover in case this falls, whatever's in there wouldn't get broke. But again, I hope this gives you some ideas. You can put little treats in here. You can do a lot of different things to kind of give this out as a gift or for yourself. You could even make this kind of like a piggy bank if you wanted and throw change in there. And then of course with this being over it, no one would know what it is. So I hope you like this video and have a great day, everyone.